And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
Yes, and welcome to The Law Show on CL 650. Today we're going to be talking about safety and the implications of, keeping your children safe, or if children are under your care during the summer. We have to talk about this Joe Murphy, QC lawyer, and the partner there at Murphy Batista, along with Mike Murphy from Murphy Batista. Now, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Is it tough working in the family business? How does that work in the office with the family dynamics?
I wouldn't say it's tough working in the family business. I think it's tough working in the business of law. There's high expectations, especially in our law firm. There's a sharp learning curve, and you want to do good work for the people that come in and are relying on you. Yeah, and it's you have a high bar to achieve, right? Yes. Your dad's been doing this since you started Murphy Batista in 1982?
Yeah, long time.
Now, were you doing this line of work before you partnered up with Joe Batista?
Yeah, well, I have an interesting background because in law school I got a job working for an insurance company, and I worked 20 hours a week as an adjuster while I was going to law school. I learned more in the 20 hours a week than I did sitting in the law classes. But when I came out, I went to work for a firm that did a lot of injury cases, and I took them over because I understood how that worked, and I knew a lot of the people in the insurance industry. And over time, that probably started when I graduated at 50% of what I did, and within 5-6 years, it was 95% of what I did. So it was an easy transition because I knew the area better than some of the lawyers that hired me. Mm-hmm. When Joe Batista and I set up the firm in 1982, that was about all we did. We do, of course, a lot of insurance, ICBC claims. Mm-hmm. We also, in the firm, do a lot of medical malpractice claims. We do dental malpractice claims. We do a variety of other accidents that happen, slip and falls, although if someone slips and falls and sprains their ankle, we're not going to act there. But you get some people that fall from 5 or 6 feet and break their necks. You can get some terrible injuries just by tumbling over. So we do that. And so my introduction into the business began in law school, and it was a big advantage to me to have that job working as a lowly entry-level adjuster for Safeco Insurance. And at that time in the early 70s, ICBC was just coming into business, and the small insurance companies, or the insurance companies, private ones, were leaving the province.
Now, Mike, of all of the areas of law that you could have focused on, why the personal injury side? I mean, you could have done real estate, you could have done criminal law, you could have done anything. Yep. So is it just because you're so close to it with your dad?
I didn't know much about it before I started looking into it, before I started working there. And there's very few jobs in this world where you get to wake up in the morning, go to work early to help people. And, it might sound kind of cheesy, but the people that we're helping, in many cases, especially those with the catastrophic injuries that affect not only them, but their wife or husband, their families, their kids, making a big difference. There's no better feeling.
That's good. All right. So this time of year, we're in, still kids are off at school. Got a few weeks before they go back. What are the implications around personal injury when it comes to this time of year? I guess the number one, and my kids, anytime we book a hotel, is it's got to have a pool, or you're going to the Okanagan because you're going in the lake. Water in summer and safety, those all go together, right?
Oh, yeah. When you take children and put them near water, the risk level goes way up. And one of my children's Zach was having, I think, a 7th or 8th or 9th birthday, and we decided to have it at a wave pool in the North Shore. Mm-hmm. And we had arranged to have one adult for every 5 kids. And within about a minute or two of these kids getting into the water, I realized that 5-to-1 ratio didn't work. It was a challenge even to watch 2 kids in the water, because some kids are good swimmers and some kids aren't. Some kids adventurous and some kids aren't. And the risk of water in kids is huge. I know from cases I've worked on that it takes 6 inches of water for a child to drown in. Mm-hmm. Same as a bathtub, really.
Yeah.
You just have to watch them all the time, and kids are curious. And it's such a tragedy when you get these kids who either die as a result of the drowning or survive but have a terrible anoxic brain injury from the shortage of oxygen.
And you don't need a swimming pool. You just need to have a fish pond in your backyard, right?
Yes, and 6 inch in the fish pond is a huge danger to a child.
So what do you suggest to people who are looking after other children when it comes to safety, and also maybe the legal ramifications of having another child or a couple of children come with you to the beach?
Well, you just have to keep a close eye on them. And as I say, from my experience at the wave pool party, I know that an adult can't watch more than about 2 kids max if they're at a pool or a beach. The beach would be more challenging because in a pool, you know where the pool is, you know the depth of the pool. You go to a beach, and if you're not familiar with it, you might have a beach that drops off very slowly, and then there's a big drop-off. And I did a case years ago of a school that took its students, this is grade 10, 11, 12, to a lake near Whistler. These are kids who, for the most part, didn't know how to swim. They put the kids into the lake without any real supervision, and one of the kids wanders out. It's very shallow, and then it drops off, and he drops off, and he died.
Oh.
And then I looked at that and thought, you know, one of the rules for school trips, and I've done cases involving school trips, is before you take kids on an activity, you make sure they know how to do that activity. So if you're taking kids to the beach, you want to make sure they know how to swim. That was never done. And this kid, like most of his friends on that trip, didn't know how to swim. So water is a big issue, and a beach, a lake, or the ocean is far more challenging and far more potentially dangerous than going to a pool. But it's a problem. I personally believe you teach your kids to swim as soon as they can learn. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean they're perfectly safe, but it means they're a lot safer. But, you know, when we get into the summer, when I'm driving down the road in the summer, I'm more conscious the kids are outside playing.
You know, they should be.
So if I'm,
in this day and age of electronics, or they're running in front of you with Pokemon Go.
Oh, I know.
Have you heard about the Pokemon Go, people getting hit by... I saw a kid on the TV talking about the Pokemon, and he said, I was hit by a car. And he said it was just a little one, though, so I just got up and ran away. I was fine. But, they're looking at their phone, and so that's, we always talk on the radio here about, it's Halloween night, be careful. There's lots of kids running around. But nowadays, with these apps, they're not looking where they're going. And the other one is earbuds in, hoodie up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where's the line between where the pedestrians have to be conscious of what they're doing versus the driver?
Yep.
Because I think a lot of pedestrians are horrible pedestrians. They don't look. They've got earbuds in, the hoodie up, sunglasses on. They're looking at their phone.
When you're a pedestrian or a cyclist and you've got earbuds in, you're taking away the chance to hear what might be coming. The popularity of kids to have screens in front of them, whether it's a phone or an iPad or a tablet, is huge. And it creates, it means all their attention's going into that item. And it means their safety if you put them out on the street or in a park anywhere has got to be more at risk. I know if I drive down a residential street in the summer, I really slow down because I know a little kid can step out between vehicles. I won't see them until they emerge because they're so short. And at even 25 kilometers an hour, I need about 65, 70 feet to stop my car from the point I see this child emerging.
Now, speaking of that, in the summer, you would think it's drier. There's more daylight. There would be less chance of car accidents, but I think that people are distracted. Instead of driving on their own, they've got their family in the car. They're driving more than they would, say, at other times of the year. In your line of work, do you see more accidents in the summer? Or is there a time of year?
I don't know if accidents are more prevalent in the summer. You'd have to factor in people driving more. But when you were talking about that, the fact is you got distracted drivers these days too, who are looking at their phone or they're texting or doing things. And after accidents, very, very few drivers will say, I was on my phone. And it's, so you've got a pedestrian who's not watching out as much, and you've got a driver who may not be watching out as much. It's a recipe for disaster.
Now, Mike, I would suggest that sometimes there are bigger accidents in the summer than you might get at other times of year, because you don't just have a single person driving. You might have the whole family. I remember there's a horrible case last year where the family had driven, I think, from Alberta to BC, and there was a whole van full of people, and Dad was driving too long and fell asleep, came into oncoming traffic. Whole van is taken out. So, yeah, you can be big accidents in the summer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And while almost all accidents are preventable, what each person inside a vehicle can do is make sure that they're actually seat belted. And it's something most people just take for granted that, sure, you'd put on a seatbelt, especially for children. But if there's one person in the vehicle, maybe a family of 5, if one person doesn't have a seatbelt, and depending on the circumstances of the accident, that person will perhaps fly around the inside of the car, injuring those people that are actually seatbelted. So it's important that everybody follows the rules. It's pretty common sense stuff, isn't it?
It is, but it doesn't always happen. And I did a case several years ago, Zach, that was the most seriously injured child I've ever acted for. He was a little boy. He was blind, paralyzed, and retarded. He he had one hand he could reach for and grab a rattle and shake the rattle. He couldn't see, he couldn't speak. And the tragedy of that case is he was in a car that simply slid over into a ditch on a very snowy day, but there was a large adult in the back seat with him who fell against him because that adult wasn't belted. And it was the crushing of the child after the slide into the ditch that caused this horrible, horrible brain injury. So really terribly tragic and totally preventable. So everything in a car, person or item, needs to be tied down, because in an accident, if it's not, it becomes a projectile, a missile.
All right, when we come back, we're going to touch on camping safety. Camping's a lot of fun, but there are a lot of hazards out there. Touching on summer safety on The Law Show, next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.